Okay, we're going to look at number 13 in section 3.7. It's just calculating this derivative here. And they've got the derivative with respect to x. They don't have the parentheses. I like to put the parentheses around that, focusing on what we're taking the derivative of. It's this whole thing. And so when we look at this, first off, it's a little tricky. You've got cosine of 15 plus x, and down here you got 15 plus cosine of x. So notice up here is a composition. We've got 15 plus x, and then we're plugging that into the cosine function. Here we have just 15 plus cosine of x, but we have a quotient, right? So if first of all, when I'm taking the derivative of a quotient, we're going to use the quotient rule. But within the quotient rule, then when I take the derivative of that top function, the numerator here, I'm going to have the chain rule. So remember, the chain rule is the derivative with respect to x of f of g of x is f being the outer function, g being the inner function, f prime g of x times g prime of x. And then we have the quotient rule also to remember, right? The derivative with respect to x of u divided by v, where u is some function of x and v is some function of x. I've got the derivative of the top function, u prime, times the bottom minus the top times the derivative of the bottom over the bottom squared. Okay, so we're going to apply this first. So I take the derivative with respect to x of the top function, which is cosine of 15 plus x, times the bottom function, minus the top function, I'm calling u up here, cosine of 15 plus x, times the derivative of that bottom function, all over the v squared, the bottom function, quantity squared. Okay. Now, when I take the derivative with respect to x of cosine of 15 plus x, it's going to be the chain rule. The outer function is cosine, the inner function is 15 plus x. So the derivative of the outer function cosine is, sorry, that looks messy, that's a negative sine of the quantity 15 plus x times the derivative of the inner function. But the inner function is 15 plus x. What's the derivative of 15 plus x? It's just 1. Derivative of 15 is 0, derivative of x is 1. So we just get negative sine of the quantity 15 plus x for all of this. This is simply the derivative of 15 is 0, derivative of cosine of x is negative sine of x. So this whole thing is negative sine of x. So cleaning that up, I've got negative sine of 15 plus x times the quantity 15 plus cosine of x plus cosine of 15 plus x. Oh, and why is it plus? I should say negative, right? Minus a negative becomes positive, right? Cosine of 15 plus x and the sine of x. So there's the numerator. It's got to be a lot of parentheses and stuff, so you've got to be careful entering it in correctly. Of course, all over this squared. Now, I would stop here. I mean, I could distribute the negative sine 15 plus x through this right here. But then when I look at what the terms I have, there's nothing really, no common factors. There's no trig identity that I can really use. Again, it's not helpful to expand the 15 plus cosine x down here. I would just leave it factored. You know, if you could factor something up here, maybe find a common factor, could work. Please note, you can't just divide, you know, this factor here with one of these, because this factor is dividing both this term and this one. All right, you have to, there's no 15 plus cosine of x factor here. So you just, some of you are just blindly factoring, you know, canceling things out. That's bad algebra. Please get the help you need if you don't understand that. Okay, so that's the end of this one. It's just a big mess of a derivative, but that is the result.